I want carbonara. Unfortunately, in order to defeat diabetes, we can't be having regular pasta, so I'm going to make a low-carb and keto-friendly carbonara that is as true to authentic version as we can make it. And for that, we need guanciale.
And if you don't know what guanciale is, well, it's smoked pork jowl from a pig. Quite a bit fattier than bacon, it has an amazing smokiness that goes extremely well in carbonara. However, in its absence, bacon works perfectly well. He cuts a rough 2-ounce piece into small cubes. Then in a large cold pan over some magical heat box, he adds extra virgin olive oil. Then in goes the guanciale. Starting with a cold pan helps render the fat better, which leads to crispier, more pleasant pork jowl joy. The chicken parm now looks like chicken parm. Plated all by itself without pasta, since pasta wasn't on the menu. It's time to hope this Italian-American dish is well received by his, well, scrupulous guests. Impressed by the visual appearance of the dish, Joe is equally impressed with the flavor.
Very good.
As is.
Really sorry, boss. We didn't know that was your cousin Vinny. He fed us food, boss. We couldn't hurt him. Kind of like Game of Thrones, you know, guest rights. Won't happen again. Ow!
Back in the kitchen, Dennis begins preparing his noodles. For this pasta dish, he'll be using shirataki noodles. Not close to the real thing, but close enough to keep us sane. He rinses them well because, like mushrooms, they tend to have a rather earthy scent to them. And there's no earth in carbonara. He presses the noodles firmly, then leaves them to drain while he checks on his pork. The guanciale is starting to render its delicious fat. Perfect. With that, he turns his focus to cheese. He could use parmesan cheese or the sheep's milk version, pecorina romano. However, he figures, why not use both? Using a zester instead of an appropriate grater, he grates roughly a quarter cup of the parmesan cheese. Then he grates a quarter cup of the funkier, more classic cheese in carbonara, the pecorino. And to top it all off, a hefty serving of black pepper.
Now this next ingredient is entirely optional. If you're on keto, it probably won't fit within your macros, but if you're doing low carb, should be alright. I'm gonna add 2 teaspoons of cornstarch because we don't have the starch coming from the pasta. This is gonna give us what we need to have the sauce sort of stick to the pasta.
Traditionally, semolina pasta is used when making carbonara. Upon close inspection, the pasta has a rough surface area, a result of pressing through bronze dyes. This texture leads to loose starch and thus a starch or cooking water, the very same water that's typically used to thicken the sauce.
Again, entirely optional.
As the guanciale continues to render and crisp, he reaches for a large avian egg. Confident in his skills, he cracks it directly into the bowl and begins to mix with the world's tiniest whisk. On a whim, he decides to add another egg yolk. Although optional, the extra yolk creates an additional layer of decadence and absolute richness. The bowl is set aside and his attention, once again, turns to the pork. It is rendered well and is crispy, and thus he turns off the heat to allow the fat to cool. Then he cleans, because rats. The shirataki noodles are added to the pan. This warms the noodles up, as well as cools the pork fat down. The fattened pan will blazing hot. When he adds the egg cheese mixture, the eggs would instantly scramble. If you're afraid of failing, do it anyways, because a failure here is rather scrumptious. Stirring feverishly, the mixture works to create a thick sauce that's incredibly creamy, rich, and absolutely delicious. Then, using his fork, he twirls it around the pasta to create a sort of bird's nest. Add some additional pecorina romano and some pepper of the black. As boss and chicken run off together around the world, we eat. Make sure to watch how to make the chicken parm that kept Dennis alive from mobsters, and until then, eat well.